Hello again, everyone. Folks, feel free to make your way in from the back, etc., and we will continue to get started. Thanks to our AV folks for troubleshooting and getting our slides up as well this morning. So I am really excited to have this opportunity to do this, and I'll tell you the primary reason that I'm really excited for this is going to allow me, not just from an individual, but as someone who is the moderator of our session, working with all of our leaders, to share with you where we believe that God is calling our church to go in this world, in both the near term and the long term. And I get to share with you a bit of some of my reflections after being here for a year, and to think about the way all that I've learned, all of the good, all of the bad too, and how we can better be good stewards of all the things that we have. If you'll hop over to the next slide. One of the things that I don't love to do is to dwell on the past, but we can learn a bunch from the past to help us to look forward. So here are a couple of things that over the course of this year, serving as your senior pastor, that I have learned that I think are going to help to continue to usher our church into the future. One of the things that is uniquely woven into the DNA of our community is a history of mission and service. There are so many ways that you can see that. And often we think about mission simply as we do things for other people or we give organizations money. But the whole thing is mission. It's all mission. The way that we care for children and youth and their parents, the way that we care for the sick, those who are aging, the way we did 2 memorials this week alone. And it was an incredible time of hearing stories of saints of this place and of the church who have massively impacted and changed people's lives significantly for the better. And this church took a massive commitment years ago in purchasing the buildings next to us that we can use for affordable housing. We have incredible long-standing mission partners. What we do on Wednesday lunches, by the way, what we do on Wednesday lunches and the incredible amount of work that Caroline and so many others put in place, that work isn't just feeding people. That is part of it. But the amount of people whose lives have been utterly transformed from that ministry is pretty incredible. And when I share those stories with people, they can't help but go, oh my goodness, this is a wonderful, wonderful thing that this church does. This place has also historically been a community fixture, been a place that is invested in Westchester and in Chester County as a whole. A place that people know about, a place that people say, when you need help. In fact, I get messages on my phone all the time saying things like, I was in need, I called an organization, they're unable to help. They told us to call you. I was talking to a church member the other week, and they said they were on a Zoom call, and there was someone from Friends Association on that call, found out that he was from First Press, and he said, you know what? She told him First Press is the best partner in the community that Friends Association has. This place is a fixture in this community. Church members, non-church members, community members, people from all over came on Friday night just to be in this place. And we had people who are not church members who said, this is so great, next year I'd like to volunteer and help with this. We have a faith that is alive. That is one of the things that I have noticed in my interactions with you. People really, really deeply care about their faith, and they're asking important questions about how best can we live this out. It is not, sometimes churches get called, for lack of a better word, boring, right? And Presbyterians are often known as the frozen chosen. Friends, we are not frozen. And we're not going to be. We are going to be active, and we are going to be alive. And this place is active and alive. This place is active in so many ways, not just on Sundays, but the building is active Sunday to Sunday. You, as the hands and feet of Christ in this world, and as members of this church in your communities, are active in so many different ways, and that's a response of your faith. This is a place that I have seen as well. It's really a place for all people. It's a place that welcomes. If you walk through those two doors at 9 a.m. or at 10:45, somebody will immediately say hello to you and welcome you. They don't care what your background is. They don't care what you look like. They just are glad that you're here. If you go to any of our new member classes, you will hear that over and over and over, of how welcoming this place is. It truly is a place for all people. One of the things that I've learned is that we have a very historic church, right? We are we're getting close to 10 to 200 years old. Frankly, we're about 9 years away from 200 years, which is a long, long, long time of faithfulness. But there are things, even with our history, that sometimes function in a startup way that's less sustainable over time. And those are some of the stuff that we're working on. Session is working on. As an organization, we're not super organized all of the time, and that's one of the things that I'm really working to help to shift and to change. And your session and your trustees, simply by the merging of the trustees and the session together, that's one of the ways that First Pres is working to have more sustainable, to be a more sustainable organization now and into the future. And the last one, I couldn't figure out what else to say or what else to call this last thing that I've learned. And I use this phrase, a sleeping giant, because it was used during my interview process, not by First Pres, but by Bill Wilson, who helped First Pres search for your new senior pastor that ended up being me. And Bill is entirely right. If you think about where our location is within the borough, within Westchester, within Chester County, there's a college that we could throw a rock to. There are families upon families in this area. There are young adults. There are retirees and empty nesters. There are elderly folks. All of the generations all live right around here, and then all live on the outskirts, and then all live on those outskirts. We live in this weird heart of this oddly residential, yet really downtown neighborhood, where we have people who have vacation homes at the beach and people who are in need of a home. We have the opportunity in this church to grow in tremendous ways. And I'm not just talking about the number of people who come into worship, although of course we would love to continue to grow that. I'm talking about the lives that are changed, the faith that has grown, and the impact that has had on people who are having real challenges in this world. First Presbyterian Church is without a doubt a sleeping giant in the ways that it can make giant impact in people's lives, and we are well on our way, thanks be to God, to continuing to impact the lives of so many people. As you can probably see from when we kicked off the fall until now, we have more children, we have more youth and young adults, we have college kids who now just come to church by themselves, which is so wonderful, and who are starting to get oriented into our young adult group that Emily is leading. We have people who are immigrants, people who are longtime folks from Chester County, people who own their homes, who rent, people who are in retirement, you name it. We have all of those people who are coming here to be in community and to worship, and our opportunity for growth is tremendous. We go to the next slide. And I want to share with you a little bit of my vision for our future. The great thing about this is you will see at the very end as well is how this coincides with the work that Session has done. You can hop to the next slide. So we have a history of mission in this place, but I want us to think clearly about what that means. And thanks be to God, our missions committee is already doing a lot of that work. Transformative mission is mission that makes an impact. You can have 37 organizations that this church budgets for and gives to out of love for them and their ministry and out of benevolence. But sometimes those dollars that we send out, the impact is pretty minuscule. And we have the opportunity to actually follow what are also in best practices for charitable giving, to combine some things so that we can make a massive impact in the lives of individuals. Not just so that we can say we give to this organization or we give to that organization, we serve this organization or that organization, but we have the opportunity by actually narrowing some of our focus to make a huge transformative impact in the lives of real human beings. So many organizations that are out there in this world, they can make one phone call and fill a loss of $500 sent to them. But $500 from one organization that really doesn't need it or their mission doesn't align with us, and if you have 5 to 10 of those, all of a sudden you have $5,000 that can go to make a massive impact in the life of someone who's desperately in need. I want us to be thinking about, and that's not just our missions committee, this is church as a whole. If it is all mission, the things that we do together should have a vision for transformation along with them. Next is, you can hop to the next one, is sustainable stewardship. If you know anything, I'm sure most of you do, about just overall church decline. It's becoming harder and harder and harder for churches to meet their budgets. And there's a bunch of different factors. If you came to any of my classes last year on the church in an accelerated world and secular age, you'll know some of this already. But there's a bunch of different reasons for that. And thankfully, this is a church that's incredibly generous and incredibly faithful to the call to support the budget and the mission of this church. And sometimes it's unglamorous things like HVAC units. People aren't really super excited to give to HVAC units, right? But HVAC units help us worship. Rick Mars up here is like, but HVAC units help us to be in a place where we can worship well. It supports the bucket school downstairs, right? There's all of these things that are connected. Being good stewards is, in one sense, and we've talked about this through our sermons, about giving of your resources to God through the church, but it's also, how do we use our building well? How do we use this place to create sustainable income that's not just about income, that's actually about transformative mission? If any of you subscribe to the Hello Westchester publication that gets sent out to thousands and thousands of people in Chester County, you will see that there was an article that was written about Cressetta Naipan, who has joined our church, who provides our lunches for us on Wednesday, and who, after approval with the session and working with our insurance, is hosting an evening takeout restaurant in our commercial kitchen downstairs. We are employing somebody, we're giving somebody the opportunity for sustainable entrepreneurship. We're using our building well because the commercial kitchen has sat dormant for quite some time, and the community is really excited about it. Go hop onto one of the Mothers Facebook groups or one of the Westchester Facebook groups, and you can see people saying, this is a really, really incredible thing that we are doing here at First Press. We have a woman who immigrated from Liberia, survived the Civil War, and now is here in Westchester doing something that is meaningful, sustainable, and sharing the gifts that she's been given with Chester County. An incredible thing, but it's also a thing that benefits the church tremendously. We have the opportunity to use our physical plant as a way of supporting our mission. And by the way, this is not just Andrew saying all of these things. There has been research after research after research done on this. This is an incredibly important way for the church to move forward. And I'll tell you what, the amount of churches who are full of spaces, not just kitchens, but rooms, etc., that are only used on Sundays are the ones that are hurting most to meet their budgets to support the mission and the ministry that we do. And we are not going to be that church. We are going to be a church that sustainably stewards all of the resources that we have. We will, without a doubt, preserve the importance of the history of this building. That will never be something that we let go of because it tells the story of who we are as a people. But we do have to use this building for the sake of God's kingdom and in so many ways. And churches that aren't used are just museums. Next slide. Authentic evangelism. So sometimes evangelism seems like a dirty word in some churches because people think it means like just going up to random people and saying, do you know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? Would you like to today? That's not what I'm referring to here, actually. The Greek word for evangelism is euangelizomai, which means I proclaim the gospel. That's it. I proclaim the gospel. And I want us to be thinking about what it means for us as people of faith to go out into this world and to serve using their faith. An authentic evangelism is one that embodies what we believe in our very being, how we act and how we live and how we function. It helps us to treat the people that we employ better. It helps us to treat our colleagues that we work with better. It helps us to think about our lives better. It helps us to run businesses and be lawyers and be teachers and social workers and all the things that you could ever be more genuinely and more faithfully. And the driving force behind those things in an authentic evangelistic mindset is one in which Jesus is at the core of all of those things, that we are constantly thinking about what it means to love our neighbors well, even in our homes, even in our workplaces, and in our relationships. And I promise you that when we do this as a community of faith, people will ask questions. That is without a doubt. Francis Assisi may or may not have said this, but preach the gospel, use words when necessary. That's what I'm talking about. The ability for us to truly live our faith in all of the places that we go. And when we do that, it is without a doubt that there will be more people who want to be a part of this community of faith, who want to faithfully serve their neighbors and engage in transformative mission. Next slide. My vision for First Press is that this is a place of life. Again, we hear all the time the church is dying. This church sure as heck isn't dying. This is not a place that is dying one bit. This is a place that has a faith that is alive, and it will continue to do so. But I want First Press to be a place that encompasses all of people's lives, who come here and say, oh my gosh, we have the bucket school downstairs, which helps to educate our young children, and they're exposed to this church and chapel, and they come to our Easter egg hunt, and they come to Fridays when we do our trick-or-treating and all these other things, and Andrew and Caroline and Sarah will do chapel for them, and I'll be at their graduation at the beginning of the year and their Christmas program, and then folks will say, oh my gosh, maybe this is the church that I want to go to. They'll educate their kids here. They'll worship with us. They'll become part of this community, and then they will go out into the world to live their lives in an authentic evangelistic way that embodies transformative mission, and they will be better and we will be better as a community of faith because they will be transformed and we also will be transformed. A place of life where people can go down to the kitchen and get food. A place of life where people on Wednesdays can come and get food. A place where people can come to actually know the transformative nature of Jesus Christ put into action. A place where people come and say, First Pres and being a part of this community of faith is not something that I add on to my life. It is not an extension of the web of all of the things that we choose to do in the places where where we spend our time. That First Presbyterian Church and our faith is actually the thing that everything else grows from. Because when we live in a way in which our faith is at the center of our lives, it impacts all of the things. I want First Pres to be a place where people can come, not just for community, not just, of course, for salvation through Jesus, a place where people can come here and find a life, because God wants them to have a life that is good and that is just and that is meaningful. Next slide. We are already engaged in our community, but we have an opportunity to engage even more. I'm so grateful for Caroline, for Elizabeth Hess as well, for the ways that they are already engaged in this place and have led the way for a really long time. But if we are going to be a fixture within this community and continue that important history, we must truly be engaged in it. We have to go out and be a part of what is happening in Westchester. We have incredible mission partners in the community that help with that. We are friends with our local elected officials. We volunteer within the borough simply to be good neighbors. We open our building to the community, and we have to continue to do that, and we have to continue to grow that. If we are, I don't use this language, but for a long time there was an idea that people called incarnational ministry. And what that meant was following in the ways of Jesus, because Jesus came to a community and he embedded himself in it. We are going to continue to embed ourselves, not just be the church where people come in and worship on the corner of the big white church with that gold dome that's on top. We want to be the church that people know, oh, First Pres. When we need help, we call them. First Pres, they're incredible neighbors for us. First Pres, they're good landlords to the restaurant that's downstairs, to the lawyers that are next door, and to the folks that are in our affordable housing. And they're incredible partners in ministry. Caroline and I, the church received a grant from the Westchester Business Foundation to support our Wednesday lunches, and Caroline and I went to go and receive that grant. And while I was there, Mayor DeBaptiste was there, and I went and introduced myself to Lillian, and I said, hey, just want to say hello, I'm Andrew Esqueda, I'm the senior pastor at First Presbyterian Church. And she looked at me and she said, we need to talk, I've been hearing things about First Pres. That's the community engagement that I'm talking about. And not just from your pastors, but from you. We are in this together. And lastly, next slide, we're going to be a church without fear. We live in a world that is wildly divided and that is so, for some reason, enamored with fear. We are afraid of our neighbors. We're afraid of those who think differently, who believe differently than us. We're afraid of people who look differently, who are from different places. We are all, it doesn't matter where you find yourself on the religious, political, or sociological spectrum, fear is something that runs through the core of human society right now, and we're going to model a different way. We've already started this with our Can I Ask That series. We are not going to be afraid to talk about hard stuff. We're not going to be afraid to disagree with each other, because we are going to do it in love. We're not going to be afraid to speak the truth, because we are going to do it in love. We're not going to be afraid to change our minds, because we are going to do it in love. And we are going to have the table as the thing that centers and grounds all of us. Perfect love casts out fear. We all know that, right? We have to live that. But living it is hard. And we may disagree on things. You may disagree with something that I say from the pulpit. And you know what I want to do? I want to invite you to send me an email and join me for a cup of coffee, and we can talk about it. And if there's someone in this community that you are in disagreement with on anything, I would invite you to send them an email and ask them to get a cup of coffee so that you can talk about it. Because we are all connected to one another, and if we are to actually be the community of faith, we have to be the hands and feet. The ear cannot do without the hand, the ankle cannot do without the toe, and so forth and so on. And we have to see each other as all parts of God's body. And if we are constantly living in fear, we will be unable to do that. We have to be a church without fear that models a different way of living for the world. Not grounded in what I think or what Caroline thinks or even what the session thinks, but grounded in what we hear from Scripture, the life and teachings of Jesus. Next slide. And lastly, there's something really interesting that happened. We started working on strategic priorities with the session. And in working on strategic priorities with the session, we did a lot of work. We had a session retreat. We spent multiple session meetings answering questions, going through information, etc., etc., etc. And as I was thinking through what my kind of personal vision after reflecting on the last year and all the things that I've learned and I'm continuing to learn, what I found out after the session did all of this work is that thanks be to God, most of what Andrew's vision for the church is aligns incredibly well with what the sessions, your elected leaders' vision is for this place. And here are the 5 priorities with information underneath those that that the session of First Presbyterian Church is going to focus on. We are going to have an elected subcommittee of the session for strategic planning that is going to work our session and our church through all of these things over the next 3, 5, and 10 years. Worship and music is a core component of our life together and something that this place is known for because it truly is incredible. I mean, how many Sundays do you go and you have incredible horns with us this morning, a full choir with all of the generations basically in it, including our college students. But we want to improve all that we have. We want to improve and grow our 1045 contemporary service. And we also, which by the way, it has grown, and we have a tremendous group of people leading in worship every Sunday at that service. If it is one that you don't go to or have never been to, even if it's not your, quote, worship music cup of tea, I invite you to come and check it out. And improving our online worship experience for those whom are homebound or who have moved away but still want to stay connected with our church. Yesterday at Bruce Ganser's memorial, I met 3 church members who said, "We're so glad you're here. You don't know who I am. I rarely am able to come in, but I want to come in for this. I watch every single week online and I wanted to say hello." We have a lot of folks like that, and we want to make sure that our online worship experience for them is as close as it possibly could be to being in person, although it never will be. And when we have a great online worship experience, we're going to start inviting people not just to stay online, but to come in person as well as they're able. Faith formation is a strategic priority. Underlying that is connecting even more so with Westchester University. Both Caroline and myself have been a big part of that, but Emily Tang as well has done an incredible job of connecting with our college students. In fact, we have a Master's of Social Work student who is using First Press as their on-site for their internship. Church does not pay for it, and we get work out of it, which helps to support all of those who are in need and our Wednesday lunches. We are going to continue to have conversations and programs around challenging topics. And this is one of the things that everyone desired, was becoming a more intergenerational church. There's a lot of churches that are multi-generations. There's all these different generations, but intergenerational means all the generations actually do this together. And it's not about mentorship, it's about knowing each other. And by the way, if you mentor a young person, they're going to mentor you back. That's how it works. And This is a place, almost every single Sunday now, since the fall year has kicked off, we have between 15 and 25 kids coming up to the children's moment, and that's not even all of them. We have a really incredible opportunity for more intergenerational activities, worship experiences, mission and service to our community, etc. Building and technology. Preserving our historic building, taking care of it, A, because we love it, and B, because it needs it too, is incredibly important. And we want to continue to maintain that. Our trustees have done an incredible job of doing that work, and which I'm so thankful for. But technology is part of our building too. It's how we connect with people both inside and outside of this place as well. So we want to figure out new and creative uses of our building. And new and creative uses of our building might require some change about how we think about using our building. And we want to improve our overall AV experience at First Pres, both in the building and online. That includes our website. So after this service, or after we are done here, I want to invite all of you to go home, to log onto your computer, and go to www.firstpresswc.com and check out our brand new website that has been launched now. You are going to have a much better user experience with that. There will be some hiccups. We're already working on all of those. But A, it looks cleaner, it looks better, and it's a lot easier to use. And you're going to be able to find things. And if you can't find things, we're going to be able to put them in a place where you can find them really, really easily. And if you can't find something, send me an email. We'll make sure that you figure out how to find it. Or we'll fix something on our part to make sure that you can find it. But for a lot of people, their first orientation to our church is going to be, I'm looking for a church in Westchester, and First Pres is going to come up. And when they click our website, that is the very first experience that they have with us. And we want their very first experience to be really good. Mission and evangelism. Our session wants to engage new members. And we've already been doing that, which is wonderful. Short-term and long-term significant mission initiatives. I think down the road, there are going to be some significant mission initiatives and things that we're going to have to talk about as a church and figure out what is it exactly that God is calling us to next. And our strategic planning committee is really going to help us to do so. And then we've got to leverage our location. I've already talked about this a little bit, but we are in an incredible space. So what I would call our geographical and social location can have a tremendous impact on the ministries of this church. And then finally, we think the continual support of our staff and our overall organization is important. There's been conversation with our wonderful investment committee about the ways that we can faithfully use our endowment to not draw down on its principal, but use those funds now and eventually even more so into the future to do ministry and mission in this place, to support new initiatives, to support maintaining the ones that we have, and to do some really cool stuff. We are not going to use our endowment for backfilling our budget. That's not what we're called to do. We are called to use this endowment to change people's lives for the sake of God's kingdom, to engage in authentic evangelism and transformative mission. And this has been a place that has been incredibly generous in supporting many of those endeavors. We've already started work on our legacy giving campaign. If you've not seen that already, Rick Young came and spoke to us, met with our investment committee. He's part of Texas. He's the president of Texas Presbyterian Foundation that manages our endowment. We have some great flyers that we'll share with you about the ways that you can engage in legacy giving. And if you have questions about what that means or what that might look like, reach out to myself or reach out to Jim Searam right here, who's chair of the investment committee, and ask the questions. We'd love to talk with you about them. And then we want to improve our organization and systems to shorten meeting times and reduce decision-making time. You can ask your fellow session members our session meetings have been dramatically reduced in the time that they take. We're going to keep that up. It's really hard to make decisions in a 2 and 3 hour meeting. And so we're going to do our best to have a good, sustainable, non-startup like organizational structure that allows us to make decisions, to go through the important polity and process, but not to belabor that process. So we are working on that, and we will continue to do that important work. And then lastly, we need to make sure that we have proper staffing. Our staff works tremendously hard. We are working diligently to fill Willie's role. That has become more challenging than we anticipated, but we are still continuing to work hard on that. And then eventually down the road, and our hope is actually very soon down the road, that we would be able to hire a ministry administrator that will act as the primary ministry and administrative support for Caroline, myself, and then some for Shondor and the rest of the staff as well, that will help us to ensure that we are on top of everything and communicating really, really well to all of you and to our community. That is the core of our State of the Church address. And we've got a couple minutes. So I think Shondor is going to grab a microphone. And if there are any questions, we'd love to have the opportunity for you to ask those of me now. If you don't want to ask those now, I ask that you would send me an email. Let's get together and we can talk about those things. And I'd be happy to share more information about what Session is doing. But this is going to be a regular thing annually, because we want to be able to share with you all that is going. We don't want any. The church and its leadership has nothing to hide. I never have anything to hide. We're going to talk about stuff. If there's challenges, we're going to share them with you, because this is your church, not mine. And we're going to talk about all of this stuff and do faithful ministry together. So anybody have any questions right now? David.
Is there a plan going forward to have an updated directory?
There's a lot of clapping for that. Yes, there is. Actually, the plan will be pretty exciting. It will likely be, we have a current internal system. It would be similar to like a nonprofit CRM system. But for us, that's Shelby. It's not fun to work with, and we're going to move away from that system. The new system that we have is going to have both an online directory that you will be able to access whenever, and the great news about it is a couple of these new systems populated in a way that we can also print it annually and give it to people who would like a printed copy of it. And then you can even update your own picture. So I don't have to see you when if you're 50, I don't have to see a picture of you when you're 21 and not actually know what you look like. You will be able to change that picture on your own. So yes, online and printed. Other questions? Art.
I don't want to let this moment pass without saying what I think is on the hearts and minds of everybody here. And that's how blessed and thankful we are that you were brought to us by God our Father. This first year has been an incredible year. Having gone through transitions before, you've turned things around, made them better than we could have hoped for. I personally want to thank you for the interaction we've had and look forward to your continued leadership in growing this church in the years ahead. So on behalf of everybody here, thank you.
Thanks, Art. I appreciate such kind words, and I thank all of you. It's a gift to be in ministry with you all. Any other questions? I look forward to opportunity to talk to you about all of this further, to continue in important work with our session. And thanks be to God that we have the opportunity to answer the call to serve God and one another together. I'm so grateful for all of you and for the call God has on our church. Thanks be to God. Thanks, everyone.